Every living thing that we know of in the universe is built out of proteins. And you can kind of think of proteins as like the little molecular building blocks of all organic tissue. So you, me, the birds, the trees, the plants, the bacteria, the microbes, they're all created out of this micromachinery of proteins. And it turns out there are a lot of proteins. There are more potential proteins that exist than there are stars in the sky or possibly atoms in the universe. It's a really, really big and kind of unfathomable number. And what I want to talk to you today about is something that's called the protein folding problem. And what that is that we understand that everything is built out of proteins, but understanding the structure of those proteins and how they come together to form organic matter is a very sophisticated and difficult thing to understand. So there's been an effort going on in science for probably the last 100 years to go about sequencing these proteins and understanding them in a kind of similar way that we sequenced the DNA for humans to get a better understanding of how that worked. And it takes, on average, probably the lifetime of a graduate student or a PhD, or basically take the best trained humans we have, and they could spend an entire career sequencing one of these things to get an understanding of its structure, right? So there's been this test that somebody invented about 30 years ago, and they called it the protein folding problem. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to apply computation and see if we could come up with a better way of figuring out how these proteins fold. So the basis of the problem is that proteins are defined by DNA. So I'll reference another video that I've talked about DNA a bit. DNA is a code made out of 4 simple pairs that is the blueprint for all life. So everything that happens in you biologically, the blueprint for how to build you, largely out of proteins, is defined in DNA. But the problem is you can look at the sequence of DNA for a specific protein and in no way tells you what happens when that protein is actually created, and based on the laws of physics, it folds into a shape which gives it a very precise mechanical function. So the way to think about it is it's almost like defining exactly the way you would take a raw material and then turn it into a cog or something that was internal to a watch. In this case, much, much more sophisticated than that. So good examples, if you've ever looked at a cell under a microscope, and if you haven't, there are some brilliant examples of this now. It looks like you're looking down on a fairly complicated amusement park. There are just so many things going on inside of a cell. It's just a wonder of mechanisms and very, very complex kind of nano-machines built out of proteins that are doing all the work that allows life to survive. They're bringing in oxygen, distributing energy, and taking care of waste and any of the myriad of specialities that cells do. So what you're looking at is a factory built of proteins. So for 30 years, we got the best and the brightest together, the scientific community, and they tried to come up with a solution of, based on this string of DNA, what is that protein going to look like when it's folded? And honestly, we didn't do very well with it. For about 30 years, the accuracy rate of predicting was somewhere around 80%, which sounds not bad, but honestly, it's not good enough for you to accurately be able to understand what's going to happen when one folds. And then we had artificial intelligence come along, and specifically a company that was bought by Google called DeepMind decided to attack this problem. And the way they did it is, while there are an infinite number of proteins, so it's not a problem you can just kind of throw computation at because you would need an infinite amount of computation, what they figured out is that we do have a bunch of proteins that we've sequenced so far. That's just been done with basically the sweat of the brow and graduate student and graduate PhD time. So they took all of those and they created a library of known folding. And what that allowed them to do is they were able to figure out that there are certain rules based on the laws of physics and some motion that have to be adhered to. So it allowed them to take in a number of variables that was too big to possibly be solved and break it down into a reasonable number of things they knew that they could then take a shot at guessing the rest. And they did several competitions, but the bottom line is they were able to, for better or worse terms, solve the protein folding problem. They were able to get the accuracy up into the high 90s. So much so that we, for the first time ever, can say that we have a computational way of understanding the core building block and how that core building block is formed from the code of DNA for the most complicated machines that exist in the universe, which is you and I and the biological world. So why this kind of gets me excited, and I would call it the biological discovery of the century. And I'm fortunate enough now to live through two of those. I thought CRISPR, which I've talked about in another video, would be the biological discovery of the century. And I would say right now that these two are probably equally powerful. And the super cool thing is they work in conjunction with each other to define what I would call the biological era of science. So this is where I go a little off the rails, and this isn't accepted doctrine by the entire scientific community, but I believe that the next 100 years or so of our progression as a species is going to be about mastering the biological world, because all of the most sophisticated machines that we can imagine are taking place at the nano level inside of cells or inside of bacteria or inside of living organisms. And we now have two tools. We have CRISPR, the ability to edit DNA, and we have the protein folding predictors, which tell us what a protein is going to look like. So while this is important, is if I want to build something at the nanotechnology level, and nanotechnology is, we get down to nanometers. It's almost microscopic area for construction. And this is really when you're going to make something complicated. If you're going to make a biological computer, or if you're going to grow a factory out of bacteria that's able to convert one type of element or gas into another for solving energy issues, or you need to build self-replicating nanites that are able to, take an asteroid and eat it and turn it into useful functions for us. Anyway, all the engineering challenges that we have in the next 100 years, in my opinion, are likely to be addressed by building these intelligent nano-machines. And we now have the perfect tool for figuring out how to make the cogs and the bolts and the individual pieces that you're going to build those things out of. And we also have an unbelievable reference library, and that is we have all of biology to look and see how this has been mastered over the past 4 billion years of evolution of life on our planet, right? So what's cool about this is if you imagine today, a tree has been, gone through billions of years of evolution, and now from this tiny, tiny seed or an acorn, you give it water and energy and some nutrients, and it builds this amazing machine, which is a tree that grabs energy from the sun and turns it into energy that we can use into biology that can be consumed. And the way plants do this, through photosynthesis, chlorophyll is kind of the basic food for all of life on our planet for the most part. And if I wanted to take that analogy a little bit further, if I now understand how to build biological machines, I could, in theory, encode within DNA an entire city and all of the functions of that city that were done that might also use photosynthesis as an energy source. And I can put that into a seed that inside here, because I understand how to make that DNA fold into the component parts that I need. So theoretically, we have a tool set now for designing growable machines, or being able to take and hijack the functions of other growable machines, life, and be able to use those for our purposes, for things that are going to be able to advance our civilization. So the first parts of these are already being done. The same company that discovered the protein folding solution, DeepMind, has spun off a company already that's gone into drug discovery. And one of the things that's interesting is these proteins, they are the little keys that allow biology to communicate with itself, right? So this is the way that your body knows what belongs in you and what does not, is there are these little chemical markers that are made out of proteins that, just like a key fits into a lock, your body looks at and says, oh, you're mine. I understand that, not to attack you, to leave you alone. And the same way with an invading virus or a bacteria or a fungus, when those things are in your body, they have codes on their surfaces that says, oh, this is another one of me, don't bother that one. But with the ability to use protein folding, we can now figure out and make the keys so that instead of having to go and attack that thing directly, you can just say, hey, here's the key that says turn off. So as far as biology goes, as far as medicine goes, this is kind of the holy grail, because even a cancer, even a disease has these markers which it uses to identify itself. And as soon as you have the code to speak to them, it's basically like giving you the master root password to be able to control the biology that you're functioning in. I don't want to oversimplify this, and later on we're going to talk a little bit more about this with some experts, because there are still enormous problems. The interesting thing you find in biology is as soon as you discover one layer, there's like 10 more layers beneath it that make it more complicated. So the engineering aspect of being able to use protein folding in really practical ways is going to take probably decades of research, and will be some of the really functional uses of artificial intelligence, which from my point of view, artificial intelligence is essentially made for biology. But the key takeaway here is that we have now in the human toolkit, just in the last decade, and as far as protein folding goes, in the last couple of years, the tools to write the code that controls the proteins, and the ability to understand what proteins we need and how to develop the key building blocks to allow us to do nanotechnology. And that nanotechnology and biological capability gives us as humans an engineering capability that, in my comparison, dwarfs everything that we have done in the past. So it's super cool. I encourage you to take a look at any of the literature out. There's tons of it now if you've heard the term protein folding, to see the almost daily advances that are being made now that this has been discovered. One of the beautiful things that Google has done with DeepMind is they went ahead and they're releasing as open source all the proteins that they've been able to sequence. And I want to give you just a hint of the power of this. We had historically a few thousand proteins that had been done over the last 100 years of unbelievable work by scientists who had to go through this very manual process to discover the structure of proteins. In the first couple of months, DeepMind was able to do over 100,000 new proteins sequenced, which is the equivalent of 100,000 careers of the smartest, most well-trained biologists in the world. So it's a magnitude, several magnitudes of increase, changing the time frame from 20 years in a lifetime's career of work to basically minutes or hours. And as they're going through sequencing millions and millions of more of these, they're releasing these into the public domain, which allows companies and ambitious people out there in the medical fields and the engineering fields to be able to come in and have a structural understanding of these things that they can then begin to build upon. which I believe is going to develop some of the most unique, innovative, and interesting scientific discoveries, engineering discoveries, and ultimately products and services of our lifetime. So thank you for listening. Ciao.